Hey guys, Nicole Mashburn here, and we're going to talk today about some genetics and a little bit about blood typing. We'll do some more stuff on blood typing. But right now, I'll make sure you understand what it means when you're talking about genetics and how to do a Punnett square. And so, when we talk about genetics, genetics is basically when we talk about the genes that you get from your mom and the genes you get from your dad. Okay, so we all know that we sometimes look a lot like our mom or a lot like our dad, and that's because we have genes from both of them. And so some of those genes are stronger genes, and we may look more like one parent than we do the other. Well, when we talk about genes, sometimes we want to write things down and kind of use a shorthand to basically represent those genes. And so when we use this shorthand, we call that an allele. Okay? So let's use the shorthand. Let's just use this T and T. Let's say that big T stands for tall and little t stands for short. Okay? So these letters are basically the alleles. They represent the gene for tall and the gene for short. Okay? Well, when you're formed, when the egg and the sperm form together to make a baby, then you have a gene from your mom and a gene from your dad. So you have two sets of genes, and that's your genotype. So you're going to have two alleles, and that's your genotype. So these two alleles put together. That's basically the genes that you have. So if you had two of these big T's, you've got two tall genes. If you have a big T and a little t, you've got a tall gene and a short gene. And if you had two little t's, you have two short genes. So that may mean if that was your genotype, maybe both your parents are tall. If this is your genotype, maybe both your parents are short. And if you have this genotype, maybe you have a tall parent and a short parent. Okay? So your phenotype is what those genes express. What's the physical characteristic that you can kind of see or basically express, or see is a good word. We'll just use the word see. So for example, tall or short. If you have this big T, then you're tall. That's the phenotype. We see that you are tall. If you have little t, your phenotype is that you are short. We can see that you are short. Now, sometimes these things that are not things that you can physically see. Maybe you have the gene for high blood pressure. Let's just say high blood pressure is a big H, and low blood pressure is a little h. So you may have, say you have two big H's, you may have two parents who both have high blood pressure, and so you have a really high chance of having high blood pressure. So some things are things you can't actually see, but it still means you have genes from one parent and genes from another. Now, when you look at these genes, we characterize genes as being dominant or recessive. And dominant just means it's the gene that's in charge. Okay? It basically trumps the other gene. If you have a dominant gene, it's the one that you see. For example, you may notice like in some families, they all have a strong chin, like the Kennedys. They all have this big square jaw and big toothy smile. That's a dominant characteristic in all the people that are Kennedys. You can see it. You can tell they're all related. So that's called a dominant trait. It overpowers the recessive trait, or the other allele. And when you have a dominant trait, you give it a capital letter. If you have a recessive trait, you give it a little letter. And that's the gene that's kind of the weak gene. And so if you have a dominant gene, you're not going to see it. But if you have two little genes put together, both your mom and your dad both have these recessive genes, you're going to see it. Okay? Now, when we talk about how these genes are put together, if you have two of the same, for example, big T and big T, or little t and little t, you have the same gene for the same trait, we call that homozygous. So your mom was short, your dad was short, you have two short genes. Okay? Now, well, let's say you have a tall dad, a short mom, so you get a tall gene, a short gene. You have two different alleles. That's heterozygous. So homozygous means two of the same, heterozygous means two different. Now, not everything is one or the other. It's not expressed by two genes. Sometimes there's multiple genes that can be expressed, and blood type is an example of that. You actually have an A allele, a B allele, and an O allele. And so you can combine those in many different ways to get different blood types, and I'm going to talk to you about that. So let me scroll down. Now let's just do a little bit of practice on how this actually works. So the way you express this, or the way you show it on a piece of paper, is using what's called a Punnett square. And you put your mom on one side and your dad on the top, okay? And you put in their genotype, okay? Their two alleles. Because your mom's going to have two genes and your dad's going to have two genes. And if you imagine that you say half her eggs are little b and half her eggs are little b, the other half, one half is little b and one half is little b, and your dad's sperm, let's imagine half your dad's sperm, half of them have a big B in them and half of them have a little b in them, okay? We want to see how many ways we can combine those things, those two sets of genes. So let's say that big B stands for brown eyes and little b stands for blue eyes. So during coitus, or during sex, when the sperm and egg have a chance to come together, so let's say that an egg having a little b and a sperm having a big B come together. Well, then the child will have big B, little b. Let's say the next time this set of eggs and a big B sperm come together, again, another chance of a big B, little b. Let's say this time you have this egg and a little b sperm, the child will have little b, little b. And then this time you have this egg and this sperm and little b, little b. Okay? So what does that mean? That means the children have a chance, a 50% chance, because remember, big B, little b means brown, because B is dominant. It overpowers the blue. Okay? So this one's going to have brown eyes. Because you don't have a big B over here, you just have two little b's, two recessives. This one's going to have blue, and this one's going to have blue eyes. Okay? So you have a 50% chance of a child having brown eyes and a 50% chance of a child having blue eyes. Okay? Now it changes you start over with the percentages every time you have sex and an egg and sperm come together. So you could have 4 children all with brown eyes or 4 children all with blue eyes. It just depends on which egg and sperm get together. But the chances are you have a 50% chance of your child having brown eyes or a 50% chance of your child having blue eyes. Okay? Now, let's do one more. All right. Let me make that blank. Let me get my pen. So let's just kind of do one. And let's say that we know that our dad is homozygous. So let's say dad is homozygous for brown eyes. So what does that mean? Brown is the big B. He's homozygous. That means they're the same. So he has 2 big B's. Let's say mom is heterozygous. Man, my writing is awful today. Heterozygous, that means she has big B, little b. Okay, so what color eyes do mom and dad have? Well, dad has got brown, and mom has brown, right? Because we've got that big B, it's dominant. So what chances do our children have? What color eyes are our children going to have? So let's make our square. Here's mom, here's dad. So we put big B, little b, big B, big B. We make our combinations. All right. So we have a chance of 2 of our kids, 50% of our kids, being homozygous, BB, so 50%, having the genotype BB. We have a 50% chance of our children having the genotype B, little b, big B, little b. So 50% of our children are going to have a genotype that's big B, and 50% of our children are going to have a genotype that's big B, little b. But 100% are going to have brown eyes. So 100% are going to have the phenotype that's brown eyes. Okay? So 50% is this is the genotype, and 50% is and 100% is the phenotype. Okay? All right, let's do one more. Let me get my eraser. And now let's say Dad is big B, little b, and Mom is big B, little b. So our kids are big B, big B, big B, little b, big B, little b, little b, little b. So we have two parents, both with brown eyes, because they're both heterozygous. They both have that dominant big B. But if you put them together, then you see that you're going to have 25, this is the genotype, 25% are going to be big B, big B. 50% are big B, little b, and 25% are little b, little b. But what's the chance of the phenotype? Well, these three all have what color eyes? Brown. So the phenotype, 75% are going to have brown eyes, and only 25% are going to have blue eyes. Okay? So it's really not hard. That's the way you do it. Just make your square, put your genes in from your mom and your dad. Okay, now I want to show you one more thing, and then I'm going to let you guys practice. Now again, I said with blood type, there's more than one gene expressed. Okay, I mean more than one gene that's out there. There's actually 3 genes that can be expressed and used for blood type. We have what's called our A, our B, and our O. Okay, so our genotypes. Okay, if you have, we use this letter I here. So you basically say you use the I and then you put the little A up there. If you don't want to use the A, I mean the little I thing, you don't have to. I actually will just make this be A, B, B, A, B, and then I just say O, O. The little I stands for O. So if you want to get rid of the I's, you can. It doesn't matter to me. So what you're showing is you have genotypes. If you have AA or AO, your blood type is A. If you have BB or BO, your blood type is B. If you have AB, your blood type is AB. And if you have OO, your blood type is O. Okay? So those are the combinations. All right? Now, A and B are what we call codominant, and O is recessive. So if you have AO, all right, then your blood is going to be A because O is recessive. All right? If you have AB, then your blood's going to be AB. There's actually a kind of a mixed type. If you have BO, then your blood is going to be B. If you have OO, then your blood is going to be O. All right, so let's do a couple of examples, and I'm going to talk about there's some other videos that talk about the antigens and the agglutination and those kind of reactions. Right now I'm just kind of focusing on how to figure out your genotype, phenotype, and what your blood type might be. All right, so I've got some sample problems for you to do, and so let's just do one, and then hopefully you'll be able to take that information, read through your information, and then work out some of these problems. So I'm just going to do one for you, and I'm going to let you guys play with it, because the best way to do this is just to read the information and digest it, and then you can start to do the problems. All right? So what we've been told here is we've got a mother and a father that both have type O blood. Well, I already told you the only way you can have O blood is if you have OO, right? So you can't have AO or BO or AB. You just have to have 2 recessive genes for O. So if both your mother and your father have O, then we know that Dad's OO, Mom's OO. Okay, so you can put OO, OO here. Well, what are the kids going to be? OO, 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 OO. So you have a 100% genotype of OO, and you have a 100% phenotype that their blood's going to be O. What if your father is A homozygous and your mom is B homozygous? Well, homozygous means the same, right? So dad's going to be AA, mom's going to be BB. So A, B, B. So you have AB, 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 right? So 100% genotype is going to be AB, and 100% phenotype means you have A, B blood. All right, now, last one, and then I'm going to let you guys work on these yourself. If your dad is heterozygous, so that means heterozygous A, that means he has two different alleles. He's AO. Your mom's heterozygous B. She's BO. Let me bring my screen up. Oh, man, I lost my pen. AO, B, O. So AO, B, O, A, B, A, O, B, O, O, O. Ooh, that's interesting. So if you have a mom that's got B blood and a dad that's got A blood, all right, then you have a 25% chance that they're going to be A, B, a 25% that they're going to be AO, a 25% that they're going to be BO, and a 25% that they're going to be OO. Okay? So that's pretty interesting. All right? So play with this for a little while, and then when we get, we'll do some more videos. You'll see blood typing. I want you to work through these worksheets, and then we'll go over the answers and make sure you guys understand it. But this should get you started. Make sure you read the worksheets, and there's another video on blood typing. So make sure you watch the blood typing video, and you'll understand what it means to have A blood and the A antigens and the A antibodies and the agglutination reaction. So be sure you're watching that video as well. Okay? All right, guys. Good luck with this, and I'll see you later. Bye.